What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Aaron B. I know it's been a minute. It's been a 2-week hiatus, but we're back on Tacos Thursday, and I got my guy Shane Carter in the building. How's it
What's
going, Shane?
up?
Yes, sir. Yes, but we got some good talking points today. But before we get into it, we got to show love to our sponsor, and that is What a Clean Solution. Need to get your carpets clean, couches, tile, and grout, moving in or moving out, and need to get that place looking brand new. Call What a Clean Solution, a family-owned mobile cleaning service that can clean anything from a small carpet to even making your car or truck look brand new. Give them a call or a text at 210-790-1410 and use promo code TNT for 5% off your total cleaning. That's promo code TNT at 210-790 for 5% off. So, all right. So we're gonna have to talk about man. We got a little busy day a little bit when it comes to the targets we got. Tyron Smith might not be on the Cowboys. Tyler Biadasz might not be on the Cowboys. There is a possibility that we have a return of Tony Pollard for the 24-25 season. So, do you want to get into Tyron Smith possibly not coming back?
Let's start with Tyron Smith. That's the name everyone talks about. And so if you listen to people like John Machota and Michael Gelkin, supposedly while Tyron Smith is in fact in a test free agency, he does not want one of those incentive-based contracts where you basically are getting paid by the game. He wants more guaranteed money. He wants a little bit more of a buffer zone there. And I think the thought process behind it was like, hey, I came back, I played more games than I had in years. I played at the highest level I've done in years, and I've earned a better deal. And my thought process is that I feel like this is more of a long time coming than anything else. I just wish they would have better prepared for this. There's still hope apparently that the Cowboys can get a deal done, and that I guess would be nice. But regardless if Tyron Smith is here for the season or not, offensive tackle needs to be with a pick inside the top 100, whether it's a first, second, or third round draft pick. If Tyron Smith is there, it doesn't force you to take one at 24, but also it doesn't necessarily take away the possibility of one at 24. I would say, though, just because you brought him up, Tyler Biadasz, it also sounds like they're not going to re-sign him. Yeah. It sounds like they're going to let him walk, which makes center probably a more immediate need to fill, but that also depends on where you are with Brock Hoffman. Apparently, TJ Bass might be able to get some snaps at center, and we'll see. As far as Tony Pollard goes, like I don't really care all that much about the deal. I think he's at that point where it doesn't matter what the money is. I think his use is kind of washed at this point. He coming off that injury, he didn't have that same burst that we saw preseason before. And even worse than that, it seemed like his field vision got worse. It felt like he had a hard time finding the holes, a hard time finding the seams where he needed to go. He wasn't as effective. Now, part of that, obviously, I think is due to the lack of quality run blocking on the offensive line. Terrence Steele took a step back. I felt like Tyron Smith's play was slightly overrated, just a little bit. I don't know if, but that is what it is. I'm not gonna get into the semantics of that, but the blocking obviously didn't help, but he didn't really do himself any favor either. So I think I would rather the Cowboys go out there and get a better veteran back that's on the market, and also you need to draft one as well. I think this is one of those times where you need to go much more running back by committee, and they had that at times when they allowed themselves to use Rico Dowdle, but they didn't use it all that often. I think they need a true running back by committee because when they have a focal point running back, it hadn't been as effective as they want it to be. So it's just in terms of those three players who I'd want most, I would take Tyron back before I would take the other two, but I'm actually okay moving on from all three, especially if based on the way the draft is. The draft is very fortunate at offensive line, and there are quality running backs available for agency, even for cheap Cowboy-like prices. So I would be okay moving on from all three if that's me. But if I had to pick one that I would prioritize, that Tyron would be the obvious one.
I agree. Do you think that they should maybe kick Tyler Smith out to left tackle? That may be the option, or do you think they could maybe draft a guard in then like a second or third round?
Well, that's an option, I guess. I had been speaking for the fact that I still believe last year that Tyler Smith was their best option at left tackle, even if Tyron Smith was there. And that concept, you'd be looking at Tyler Smith at left tackle, TJ Bass would slide into left guard, and then Brock Hoffman would at that point become your center. I still think you need to draft a center. You still need to draft a tackle because I don't want to just rely on the hope that these guys
Yeah.
help. I don't want to rely on players that are hurt coming back to being better. I'm tired of relying on potential and injuries, which is what we relied on. Terrence Steele, he didn't look good return from injury either. Um, so they need in this draft, they need to get a tackle regardless, because even if they bring back Tyron Smith, I can't bet on that Tyron Smith will be healthy. You're likely going to get like 13, maybe 12 games out of him at the most, and I can't bet on that Terrence Steele will be back to his old self. So I think tackle is a bigger part than people realize, just because of who they have there. And I would like somebody with versatility. Everyone brings up Mims from Georgia, Guyton from Oklahoma. We'll get into that more of that talk later on. But in terms of Tyler Smith, Bass, Hoffman as your tackle guard center, I'm okay with that only if we have a plan B set up behind them that you can rely on. Otherwise, at that point, we're throwing darts at hope, and hope only spring. Hope. Some people say hope springs eternal. Hope's a hell of a drug, and that's something that Cowboys have been smoking for 30 years, and it ain't brought nothing back.
Yeah, you got to have some depth on this offensive line in general. I would like them to upgrade at center. I like Brock Hoffman, but I would like him as a depth piece more.
I like the way he's progressed. I think in his last year he definitely got better, especially in those times that he played. When he and TJ Bass stepped in, especially against I believe it was Detroit. TJ Bass did really well. Hoffman had a really, really good game. Hoffman had a great game against Washington.
He did.
Granted, they sat a lot of their starters, but he looked probably as best as I've seen him. So if that was the plan, if they're saying like, hey, we're still going to draft a center, we're still going to draft a tackle, we don't. But if they say, okay, but we have Hoffman here, we don't have to force it. I can live with that. I think the Cowboys can live with Hoffman. He's very gnarly in that way, but I don't want to just bet on him being able to take that step, giving him those advanced snaps.
Yeah, you can almost kind of go day 3 looking at some centers. I know there's some good quality centers out there in the draft.
I think like the draft is gonna be. We'll see like a handful of centers going days 1 and 2, and then once you get to day 3, you're looking at guys who are probably gonna be practice squad at best. I don't really. I've only dipped my hand a little bit in the center class, and we can talk about that more when we talk more about the draft segment.
Yeah.
But I'll get into that here in a little bit. But we can finish up this.
Okay. Yeah. One more part I want to get into is the Cowboys did exercise Michael Parsons' 5th-year option, according to Michael Gilkin. They're going to have him they have him listed as a defensive end this time around, but it makes sense when it comes to Cowboys how they work with money is. As a linebacker, he would have earned $24 million in 2025 in the final year of his contract, but as a defensive end, his salary would be $21.3. So I see why they would have him listed as a defensive end.
Well, again, that wasn't the Cowboys designating him. That was designated based on the league, because he primarily played more snaps at defensive end than he did linebacker this past year. So they designate him as a defensive end, which in that case it does save the Cowboys $3 million in cap space just in difference. But no, the Cowboys didn't designate him. That's kind of been a misconception. I was wondering, like, did they do that themselves? And no, it was similar to what happened to Khalil Mack a couple years ago when he was playing both linebacker and defensive end. Remember, he was a dual All Pro in that one season, but he was primarily an edge. So his numbers reflected more of as an edge. He didn't get franchise tag, but that's the same concept.
That's my bad on that end, but I do see the percentage of how many snaps he did at an end, and he played 87.8% of the.
Yeah, so he was definitely going to be listed as an edge. Yeah.
So they definitely gonna have to be paying him next year for sure, because Michael Parsons been a definitely valuable piece to this defense. But we kind of been dabbling in our second topic already, so I think we might as well just get into our Cowboy draft targets. So I actually got the list of some of the formals and informals that they talked to. Shout out to Nick Harris and
Nick Harris put in work that weekend. My boy Nick. That's I know you want to set this up, but I just want to jump right in. Let's start with the offense of the guys they met with, right? So like, if you were to target one of these offensive guys go from Brian Thomas down to Zach Frazier, like right there, you see him, right? If you were to prioritize those guys in terms of like a realistic target at 24 that you would love to see, give me that one guy.
Between Brian Thomas and Zach Frazier?
Yeah, all those guys listed right there.
Man.
If you like said, like, if those guys are all available, You had the chance to make the pick. Who are you going with? Because I've narrowed it down to like 3. And for what it's worth, the Cowboys met with Jackson Powers Johnson at the Senior Bowl, so they really didn't need to meet him with him again at the Combine. So they've done their due diligence, and I think pretty much everyone's aware how good he is. For those wondering,
I kind of felt like you were going to ask me this question, but I want to go the BPA route. That's usually our best route. And
okay.
if you tell
Well,
me
then what?
I'm going with the BPA route. I'm going with Brian Thomas, just getting that big X receiver that we need, because I know we're going to get rid of Michael Gallup. It's better to upgrade
Michael Gallup is likely, if they can't find a trade partner for him, they're probably going to release him. Just because he got beat second half, not only in style of quality but in snaps to Jalen Tolbert. I'd even say that Jalen Brooks, their 7th round pick last year, I like some of his potential.
Yeah.
And he's obviously got 7th round attached to him. I don't know if they want to go receiver this high. I'm not saying they wouldn't, because if you have like a CD Lamb situation, like let's say for instance, and this probably won't happen. Let's say Rome Odunze from Washington fell all the way to. I know, right? You have to take him. You have to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to take him. But I don't think necessarily if Brian Thomas is there, at that point, him going against these other players, it's much more subjective as to who best player available is. Now, I know you're a big flash type guy, so I feel like you would like to go receiver first.
Yeah.
I think, though, you can get a quality receiver on day 2, because I think receiver is probably still a bigger need than people realize. CD Lamb, his contract is expiring after next season. Brandon Cooks has 1 more year on his deal. There's no Michael Gallup's on his way out. Jalen Tolbert is going into his 3rd year. There's no determination that if he becomes a full-time starter, he'll be that guy. And then behind them, they had the likes of Kamante Turpin, who's nice in spades, but is much more of a return threat. And then, like we talked about, Jalen Brooks, who's been a nice developmental piece. He's shined in some of his offensive snaps, but if you ask him to become that 4th guy, I'm not really sure he's ready for that. So if you're looking for a guy who you want to develop, not necessarily a starter, I don't think you need to take Brian Thomas, but I do agree he is in that group of guys who'd be best player available. I think he might be I think he might go top 20. I think people are kind of like serving him a little bit short, just because his teammate Malik Neighbors might be the best receiver in this draft. Malik Neighbors, I think, is going to be a star, personally.
Yeah. When it comes to that, I think after seeing what he did in the Combine, I think a lot of scouts are going to go more deep into Brian Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see him getting up there, because you remember in the mock draft, a lot
separate,
yeah. And then when you remember Jackson Powers Johnson was this guy everybody had in the 2nd round, but when he flashed and showed out in the Senior Bowl, now you're looking at him being
it doesn't feel likely, does it? It feels like he might be destined to be a 1st round pick. That's the cool thing about the draft, though, is that players get overdrafted and underdrafted and fall all the time. I mean, no one thought that Jahmyr Gibbs was going to go 12 overall to the Lions last year.
No, and it actually panned out.
It worked out.
Yeah, because I remember a lot of us were saying that's too high. Then next thing you know, he actually was a good 1-2 punch with him and Montgomery.
When the Lions made that pick, because Jack Campbell, the middle linebacker from Iowa, was their 2nd pick, I thought, like, okay, I would have been more okay if they took Jack Campbell at 12 and Jahmyr Gibbs at 18. Not because I'm someone who doesn't believe in the value of running backs. I just thought that Campbell was more deserving of the pick at 12, because I thought Campbell was the best pure inside linebacker. He's much more starter ready. He fit Dan Campbell's system, and he became one of the better defensive players last year at Velvet Rookies, so that worked out. The Lions had a hell of a rookie class.
They really did. Then they got Sam Laporta in the 2nd round.
Sam Laporta was my tight end too. I maintained that I brought him up to the main stain and up to the draft. I maintained that I did that. But I was wrong about some other guys too, so I can't talk myself too much. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. Was there any other guys that you have like in mind that maybe a 1st round? I wouldn't mind a Zach Frazier at center.
Frazier, I think Zach Frazier would be worth the pick at 24. Yeah. I think a lot of people really like Graham Barton, the guard tackle from Duke. A lot of people have him projected to move to center. I'm scared that's going to have a Cam Ervin effect, because everyone remembers Cam Ervin when he was drafted from Florida State by the Browns. He went from tackle to center, and he bounced around the league because he was never really a true center. He finally gets a chance to play at guard. He found an extended career as a guard. He was a really good guard, but he was out of position for so long. Graham Barton, I have not seen him play center. I don't think he's taking a snap at center. He's played tackle and guard primarily. He's really good at that. I would be okay if the Cowboys took him, but at that point, if they take him, they're telling me a couple things. Either that means that Tyler Smith is playing tackle and Graham Barton's going to play guard, or they're going to try him at center, but Brock Hoffman's going to stay. To me, Graham Barton is a great player, but if you need a center, you shouldn't go after him unless you know he can do that. If you need a guard, then yes, take him because he can play guard.
Yeah.
Zach Frazier, I think, is probably the second best center prospect behind Jackson Powers-Johnson, and I think he's worth the pick at 24. Very powerful, very West Virginia does a good job of developing run blockers, and a lot of people have talked about that about his cerebrality, very smart player to read defenses. He doesn't have the same power that Jackson Powers-Johnson does, though, but he still has plenty of it.
Yeah.
But I think if the Cowboys take him at 24, I'd be like, oh, okay. I guess it depends on who's available, but I wouldn't hate it, especially if Tyler Biadasz walks. And maybe that also means that they're not really comfortable starting Brock Hoffman primarily, but I would not mind him. If I had to, I want to focus on the tackles for a second. So
Okay.
I love Jordan Morgan from Arizona. I think technically he might be one of the best ones. Amarius Mims might be one of those like hidden gem upside type first round picks. He only has yards at Georgia, but he's 6'8", 320 something. But he's built like Tyron Smith. He's built. He ain't like a typical offensive line. He's built. But if we want to get to more like that nastiness, like a Tyler Smith type player to play tackle, Troy Fautanu. Thank you. I cannot pronounce the name right. Troy Fautanu might be that guy. Troy Fautanu is a nasty mauler type of offensive lineman who, if you pair with Tyler Smith on that left side, you're probably going to get a lot of penalties, but you're also going to get a ton of yards per carry on that side. He's pretty. I still think he's pretty technically sound, especially off the snap. He's a lot longer than his frame. I think he's about 6'4.5", almost 6'5", 320. Tyler Guyton's a popular name the Cowboys are getting attached to, right? The right tackle from Oklahoma, and Oklahoma has a history of putting out good offensive linemen, so I wouldn't hate that. But Tyler Guyton is interesting because he's primarily been a right side tackle, and I wonder if that means more for Terrence Steele if they took him, right? It's like, hey man, your replacement's here, but we're just gonna play him at left tackle just until we find a way to get rid of you. Almost, I don't know. But those are guys that I looked at.
Oh yeah, I like all those guys. I kind of see Mims even as really a good right tackle, and then Guyton is kind of like that flex. I could see them doing something like that. They have him at a guy in that left tackle, and then it slowly creep if they're like, okay, we're gonna move on from Steele, we're gonna put him at right tackle.
Because last year Terrence Steele was not. Terrence Steele had good games, but overall quality it was not as good as it was the year before. But yeah, if I had my pick between those tackles, I think I would go either Morgan or Fautanu first.
Yeah, I feel like Morgan would be the safe pick, especially when it comes to his pass sets and just
very good pass protector. Very good pass protector.
And one thing I've noticed about him, he has a really good mirror game. It just needs to develop a little bit more on the. It's like his pass blocking game is pretty much set. It's just the run game needs a little bit of development. Because I see he's a little too over aggressive at times.
Yep.
But
let's look at the next set of guys. I think you and I pretty much agreed, and none of these running backs are Trey Benson might go day one, but no other running back's gonna go day one. I don't want to spend too much time on running backs. That'll be more towards when we get to the draft about backs.
I definitely agree. Let me get to. You want to get into these defensive players that they talked to?
Yeah, let's get to the defensive guys.
Yeah, let me get here. I got a.
You're fine. Okay, so we got some corners down there, and they're spread out by the tweets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shout out to blocking the boys.
No, you're fine. We can break them down a little bit. I don't see the Cowboys going edge round one just because they've created a huge hole for themselves. Real quick, Tyrese Knight, linebacker from UTEP, a very underrated name. I want you to keep in mind that he's a much more underrated athlete, about 6'3", 240. He ran a 4.6 at the combine, but again, I don't really care about the 40-yard dash all that much. That's on a show the other night, I called it the dunk contest at the combine. Just people pay more attention to that than anything else. But he's very fluid in how he moves, very solid tackler. Just played at a lower level conference. But I think he's going to be a guy who I think the Cowboys should target in middle of day 3, and as that developmental maybe Mike linebacker type player. Big fan of Tyrese Knight. Just putting that out there for that.
Could you see him like as like a 5th round type of guy?
Yeah. Fifth and 6th round is I think is his sweet spot.
Okay, because I've been seeing him a lot on there. I need to start. I want to watch a little bit more film on him.
Yeah, Tyrese Knight is one of my favorite diamonds of the draft, diamonds in the rough type players for this year's draft. Let's see. I'm trying to think.
I like the Darius guy. Kind of reminds me of Dak Gwynn back in the days.
Yeah. Because of the size.
Yeah, and just the tenacity to his game. He's got some physicality. He's kind of in those realms of like Dexter Coakley and those type of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they got to see him at the Shrine Bowl in Frisco. So
Yeah.
that's another.
Muhammad Kamara, the edge rusher from Colorado State, that's interesting. A lot of people know him just because he got brought to the scene because he had a great game in the against Colorado back when Colorado was like on top of the football world for 4 weeks. He had a great game against the Buffaloes. He really made a name for himself. I think he's got solid size. I think he's about 6'4", 260. Plays a pure hand in the dirt type defensive end. Not very fast or quick off the ball. So that's kind of the difference. He's good snap. He's strong. Not very fast, but he's pretty fluid with it. I can see him being a solid. I would say if he is a target at 87 at third round, I'm okay taking him because I think he has some upside there. And also because the Cowboys have someone like Tank and Sam Williams in them, you don't have to force him to play right away. But I think he does offer you some upside.
Yeah. From what I've seen, I could definitely see him, and it'd be a good rotation. Just he would still just be learning. Maybe you'll see more of him get snaps in year 2 or so.
Right.
You see some other guys.
Yeah. Scroll some more guys down. I don't know if there's any more. Obviously, Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker from A&M, he's a popular name. He might be the best pure inside linebacker in the draft. Everyone's also talked about all the best linebackers have some kind of injury history behind them. I think Peyton Wilson from NC State might be the best linebacker, but he obviously had surgeries 2 years ago. Since then, obviously, no injuries from then, but that's still always going to be like one of those little red flags that kind of peaks up a little bit. I think Cooper might be a first-round draft pick, but if he's there in the second round, it's really tough not to just pull the trigger on that because Cooper might be the best pure ready to go linebacker. Peyton Wilson, I think, might be the most athletically fluid of all the linebackers. So he's that's definitely a name. That's definitely a name that we need. That's going to be considered at 56 if he's there.
Yeah, if he's at 56, it's almost like you kind of have to get him.
You almost have to, right?
Yeah,
but the Cowboys also have like a bad history, whatever it is, of drafting linebackers in the second round. Whether it's because they either fail to live up to it or they get hurt or whatever it is. Jalen Smith was good for a spell, but injuries like caught up to him. Sean Lee injuries. Bruce Carter didn't live up to it. I'm trying to think of it's just for some reason getting a linebacker in the second round, it just hadn't worked out for them. They've done better either taking a linebacker first or later on in the draft. I don't really know why, but it is what it is.
I feel like most of the time is because they like to hurt guys, but with the high upside.
Yeah, I'm tired of betting on hurt players. I really am.
Yeah, it's a crapshoot when it comes to that. It's like it may pan out, but then most of the times you're going to only get them for 2 to 3 good years, and then they just.
Okay, I know you're a big Texas fan. T'Vondre Sweat. Obviously, some people consider him the best defensive tackle in the draft. Definitely one of the best pure run defenders. I think. I want you to break him down a little more because I know you watched a lot of Texas ball. I've seen his tape. I know how good he is, but I'm just interested in to hear what you think in terms of his strengths and weaknesses might be so far, at least.
Yeah, he's a pure run stopper, but he's not just some big old trash can full of dirt. He's got some athletic movement for a guy for his size.
Trash can full of dirt. I know that's a coach's term. Yeah.
Yeah, it's stuck in my mind when they talk about one text and everything. And he would fit right in being that one tech, and he gets off the ball quick.
He does
for a guy's size. Because that's one of the things.
I don't care about the 40-yard dash or defensive tackles. He has a quick step. He has a quick step.
Yeah, when it comes to 40-yard dashes with the defensive tackles, they're not running 40 yards at never. So
I like that for defensive tackles. I like the T test, the L test, and I want to see those 10-yard splits. Let me see what that looks like. That can tell me more about how you are inside the line of scrimmage where the play is actually happening.
Yeah.
Junior Colson's a name that gets mocked a lot to the Cowboys. I guess like the Cowboys are become the Michigan team. I would rather take him in the third round than the second. Not because I don't think he would be worth a second round pick, but just because I think you probably find a better player at 56 than him. But Colson, I think a lot of people would say, is one of the more technically sound linebackers. He's a similar build to Micah, about 6'3", 250. Obviously not the same athlete, but very powerful, very strong, very good against the run. That was like his biggest thing. He was one of the better run defenders on the Michigan defense, which was full of really good run defenders, along with his teammate there, Chris Jenkins, the nose tackle from Michigan. Yeah, Junior Colts is the guy that I would probably target in the third round.
You think he'd be a Mike?
Yeah, he could. He could play Mike. He played Mike and I think Sam also while at Michigan, so he's got a little flexibility there. Yeah. Especially because I don't think Leighton Vander's coming back, and I don't want to force putting Damone Clark back there because I think Damone Clark plays better at will than he does Mike Backer anyway.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, because I don't want to give up on Damone yet because Damone I think still gives you some quality play.
Yeah, it would be best to have Damone at that will where he can just play his game and just get a pure Mike type of guy that can be that green dot guy.
I agree.
Another will linebacker I think is purely a will linebacker is Tyron Hooper out of Missouri. Okay. Yeah, he's one of those guys that can drop down and just bring the heat when it comes to his tackling, but he can drop out to be that sideline to sideline type of a guy as well.
Fluid player, I got you.
Yeah, I mean, there's other. There's a lot of quality guys that they got to do interviews with. Let me see. You think there's an opportunity that they'll look at some of these corners because I know they did a formal with
maybe this isn't a great cornerback draft. I think they're okay taking a corner in day 3 and developing them just because I don't love the cornerbacks in this draft. Nate Wiggins from Clemson I think is a name that gets popped up a lot. I don't really like him all that much in fairness, but I'm okay if they took if they took Quinton Mitchell at 24, the cornerback from Toledo. I won't hate that, but I think he might be gone by then.
Yeah, he's another guy that when they went to the Senior Bowl, they pretty much set the tone where they're going to be in that middle to maybe even a little earlier in the draft, getting picked up by some team. Let me see if there's any other guys.
We got some receiver. Well, we already talked a little bit offense, but I gotta be honest with you. Okay, so I'm gonna say this right now. Xavier Worthy, I know he broke the 40-yard dash record. I think that's an overrated thing. I think Adonai Mitchell's the better prospect. His teammate Adonai Mitchell. I think Adonai Mitchell's better ball control. I think he's better in one-on-one situations. And I think Xavier Worthy. I don't love his frame. I don't love. The one thing that always hurts these fast cornerbacks is when they go up against physical corners, physical defenses. They have no way of breaking free because those really good ones that have advanced, they know how to avoid getting burned. So unless Xavier Worthy is going to find a way to not just be a specialist receiver, which right now I think he might be with potential, I think I'm not going to say he's another John Ross, but I don't think he's worth the first-round pick. I don't even think Adonai Mitchell, to be fair, is worth the first-round pick either, but I would take Mitchell over Worthy in that regard. Player there. Keon Coleman, I think, is still the best player amongst these groups of receivers. I know he ran the 4.62. I don't care. I think he has the best separation, the best hands of this group. I think he's the best receiver of these guys listed, my opinion.
Yeah, he's a smooth route runner, and when you're looking at the receivers that we need a big receiver. We got the smaller guys already on there.
We got the route guys. We want that big body guy. Yep. Which is why I think Xavier Legette from South Carolina is my favorite target for 56. I'm a big fan of his. He's a very physical type runner. A lot of people want to compare him to Debo just because of the size. I think he's actually Debo was built like a running back. Legette's built like a linebacker.
Yes.
So he might be my favorite target for the second round, Xavier Legette. But for these guys, Keon Coleman, in my opinion, is the best receiver.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was discussing about was it Xavier Legette with EJ, and it's like all these South Carolina. They always got these very talented players at South Carolina.
Big old thick bad boys, yeah.
Yeah, it would just fit perfect with this offense, and the reason why you see him in the second round because he only had like one season where he had over 1,000 yards. It's kind of been like here and there, but everything. But just having a guy like that at the X with CD and Brandon Cooks for this year, man, that's a good receiving core right there. You give him that 56, and then I'm just saying, like, first round, get one of those offensive linemen, and then third round, look at one of those defensive players, maybe a defensive tackle or one of these linebackers.
Mm-hmm. I don't love. The thing is, I know they need a lot of. I know they need a lot of this stuff, but I don't love a lot. I think this is much more of an offensive friendly draft. If they're gonna go defense, they have to go. They have to do it early. Otherwise, I'd rather them like buy starters and then draft developmental guys later on. But I think the first 3 or 4 rounds need to be. I'll be honest, might need to be focused more on the offense, unless one of those really good defensive guys falls to them.
Yeah, I agree. When it comes to, they need to invest in some of these veterans when it comes to defense, and then in the draft, maybe these guys are like the depth guys. Like if I'm thinking of a 3rd round guy, I'm thinking of like a rotational guy, not like a guy I'm gonna have straight up in this start for me when it comes to defense. But
yeah.
Was there any other guys that you wanted to discuss before we get into our 3rd topic?
No, let's get into it.
All right, so there's been a lot of movement when it comes to the. Let me get this. Stop sharing. There's a lot of guys that are been moving around in the league, but one guy that caught my eye that could be a potential guy is Eric Kendricks, who got released by the Chargers Tuesday. So I want to get what's your thoughts on Eric Kendricks?
My thoughts on Eric Kendricks are that he was really good under new coordinator Mike Zimmer during his time in Minnesota, but I don't think he's the same speed. I don't think he's even necessarily the same like type of player. But I do think what you have here is a guy who knows Zimmer's system, knows how Zimmer operates, and I think at the very least gives you much more of consistent play at Mike. But I don't want him to go out there and be a playmaker like I think people think he can be. He's not that guy no more. He ain't the all pro that he is anymore. But I'm okay if you get him, especially if you think you might not be like drafting high at linebacker, just because you need bodies there. I'm okay signing 2 linebackers and drafting 2 linebackers. To be honest, they can't go back to using safeties at linebacker anymore.
Please don't.
That was a fun experiment when it happened because they tried it with Keanu Neal and that didn't really work out. Marquise Bell actually gave you some quality play for a little bit, but he was kind of like a target in the run game.
Yeah.
Jaron Curse, they played Jaron Curse a lot of free safety last year, which is kind of a weird thing to do because he's much more of a box type guy anyway. And Donovan Wilson plays like a linebacker, but he's a safety. So I want them to get linebacker type bodies. And if Kendricks is one of those guys who's willing to come in, I'm okay with it just because he knows what Zimmer wants to do.
Yeah, I would have Kendricks as more as the green dot guy, but then drafting and signing some veteran getting some linebackers in there for depth reasons. Yep. I want to put all my eggs in one basket with Demario Overshown coming back after an ACL injury because we don't really have the best record of guys with ACL injuries.
Got to stop relying on hurt players.
Yeah, like you could tell me all these things and articles and everything, but still draft some of these linebacker. Maybe double dip at linebacker, get a veteran linebacker like Eric Kendricks, but that shouldn't stop you from getting another guy because at the end of the season, you're playing a 17 that is going to be 18 weeks this year or next year.
They're talking about it.
Yeah, you got to have some depth pieces, and you don't want to just go for some guys that are just that have been just training and stuff and haven't been on the team and everything and get adjusted. Get your depth pieces and figure it out when it comes to that, but. Was there any other guys that you were looking at that could be potential Cowboys that got released?
Well, I mean, Quandre Diggs might be a fun potential player. I think he would be a better option at free safety than Malik Hooker, but Malik Hooker is on a contract.
Yeah.
There's a lot of safeties out there in the free agent world. I wouldn't mind dipping on one of those guys. You can never have too many good defensive backs. Plus, Quandre Diggs gives you an option, a guy who can play both nickel and free safety, sort of like that dual player. But also, I don't want to take away snaps from Wanye Thomas, who does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So once we get into when free agency actually starts, we'll see what the numbers look like. Right now, I'm not even like sometimes I don't even like talking about free agency because I know the Cowboys are going to nickel and dime it, despite the fact that they had the biggest piggy bank.
Yeah, it's almost like they go to when it comes to free agency, they don't even go to Target. They kind of go to the Dollar Tree and see what they can figure out or the clearance rack and see what they can get.
Yeah.
It's kind of a tough thing being a Cowboy fan when it comes to free agency. You're like,
you're
seeing it's like you're getting socks for Christmas. Everybody's getting that new toy that they want. And you're like, come on, can I at least get that that Transformer I wanted as a kid?
Or at least give me the batteries.
Yeah, that's another thing. Man, but I appreciate you, bro. I know you've been busy and everything, but
no doubt.
It's been a great show. Appreciate for everybody that's coming through on the show and everything. Make sure y'all subscribe and everything, and share so this channel can grow and everything. And we'll definitely be coming out with some fire topics and stuff. When it comes to the draft, it's not just Cowboy oriented. You can view it as some guys that could be potential in your team. I know not everybody on here is a Cowboy fan, but it's just we greatly appreciate for everybody that's watching and everything. But do you have anything other thing that you want to talk about, or you got anything got going on?
No, we'll save it for next time once free agency actually starts.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's coming up next week, but they'll definitely be having some talking points with that. But hey, this has been Tacos and Touchdowns. Y'all have a good one. Peace.